वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्.
Hi, and welcome to Geeta Girl. My name is Sharmila, and the Geeta Girl podcast is about how to live skillfully and be your best self by using the advice in the Bhagavad Gita. Jai Shri Krishna, Shaila.
Jai Shri Krishna, Sharmila. Looking forward to this fourth podcast on boundaries. The first podcast on boundaries was why are they even important? The second podcast was when should you set them? The third one focused on how do you set boundaries? And that part is so important. And we received so many questions about how to set boundaries that we decided to do this fourth podcast to focus on some of your very specific questions about how to set boundaries. So think of this as a little bit of a sampler platter of setting boundaries with families, friends, colleagues in difficult situations, and with people that you see every day, and maybe people that you don't see every day, but it's still important to set boundaries. So hopefully, in all these examples, there's a little something for everyone to learn.
In the previous 3 podcasts, we've already established that boundaries are essential for your mental and physical well being and are not selfish, according to the Bhagavad Gita. It's quite the reverse. Your boundaries ensure that you can perform your duties in life optimally, which is for your benefit and for the benefit of the world at large. Your boundaries indicate what you will accept as healthy behavior towards you and what you reject as unhealthy behavior towards you. Your boundaries also indicate what you are able to give of yourself to others in a healthy manner. Boundaries are essentially an expression of love and respect. You are expressing to someone through your boundaries how you want to be loved and respected. A big part is also accepting other people's boundaries, accepting how they want to be loved and respected. Boundaries are an essential part of a mutually loving, caring, and respectful relationship.
All of that is so true. We went over that in detail, particularly in the first 2 podcasts, but it is still so hard. And the how you do it is still really difficult. My head is telling me that I need to show myself self-respect, and this is a reflection of caring for myself, and this is how to demonstrate for others how to show me respect as well. But it's still very difficult, and it makes me feel a little bit better to know that this was also a problem for Arjuna. He had a really difficult time setting boundaries with his cousins, the Kauravas. And for those of you who are familiar with the Mahabharata, you know that there was a history of really poor behavior on the Kaurava side. They did so many terrible things to the Pandavas, and it escalated to war. So I always think, what if they had stopped at any of those times and said, no, you can't disrespect my wife by taking off her sari in public. You can't keep cheating. You can't do all these things, and set those boundaries.
Yeah, you can't keep trying to drown us and we'll keep our mouth shut. You can't keep trying to set us on fire. Those are
Excuse me,
unacceptable.
that is a hard no.
Yeah.
I will not be set on fire or drowned.
Yeah, but the
So
Pandavas didn't do that.
also.
The Pandavas didn't do that. They just found clever workarounds on how to
That's right.
escape and how to save themselves.
That's right. But we don't need to go that far. So we're going to learn how to keep it from getting quite that crazy.
In general, the more you delay putting off expressing your boundaries, usually the problem becomes bigger. Just as in the Pandavas and Kauravas example, the problems and the bad behavior became worse and worse. So it's really important to take courage and do it, as much as it's difficult. We often choose avoidance because we want short term peace. But in doing so, the consequences of that is that we're choosing long-term war. And that's exactly what happened in the Mahabharata. The long-term consequences of not expressing your boundaries are often worse than the short-term consequences of expressing your boundaries. It's a procrastination technique that we do. We kick the can down the road, we put our head in the sand, I'll deal with it another time, or it's not so bad. All the excuses we and Arjun and the Pandavas made to themselves. But the problem with kicking the can down the road is when you get to the end of the road, there's a huge
Or
mountain of cans. What are you going to do with them?
that's right.
That's not to say one should act impulsively and deal with everything impulsively in the moment. But once you're calm and rational and have self reflected and you are convinced and centered that a boundary needs to be expressed, just go for it. Take courage and do it. Because procrastination usually makes the issue harder to handle because now you have to also deal with the well established patterns of having no boundaries. People are like, wait, you have boundaries now?
That's right. I've been able to push you around this whole time. How come now you're setting up some boundaries? And not to say that you can't do that. For those of us, I include myself, who have not been great at setting boundaries, and now after listening to these podcasts, I've decided I'm going to do better about that. It might confuse people and there might be more pushback. Um, so you can still do it, but it certainly makes it harder. It's better in the beginning of a relationship, sort of setting down rules
Or guidelines. It's not
or
really rules,
guidelines.
it's more
That's right.
guidelines.
That's right. That's right. That you express yourself then. Make clear boundaries at that point.
It's much easier to start as you mean to go along
That's
than,
right.
than change things, many years into a relationship. Although it's not too late.
It's never too late, but yes, certainly better to do it in the beginning. But why don't we get into some of the hard hitting questions that we got from some of our listeners?
I just want to go back to one point, Shayla, that you said. You said, oh, creating boundaries is so hard. Yes, I raise both my hands that, yes, for me, expressing boundaries, creating boundaries is super hard because in the book Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend, that I've referred to in a previous episode, they say, and this was so interesting to me, that by the age of 3, okay, a child should know how to give a no, and a child should know how to take a no. And I was like, the age of 3, how about 53?
Or I was going to say 50 years later, and I'm still working on that. And I don't, wow, okay. I mean, I'm happy that these 3-year-olds are walking around more mature than I am, but
Well, that's why it's so difficult for us.
unlearning behaviors that we've been doing for many, many years.
Right. And interestingly, they said that the reason why we don't know how to give a no and take a no is because of our mothers. Yes, let's blame our mothers.
That's
Okay.
right.
I'm going
Someone's
all
going to
millennial.
blame us one day. We might as well blame our moms too.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going all millennial like my children. I'm going to blame my mother.
Her fault.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry, mom.
Yeah. Love you, Mom.
Mean it.
Most of the time. Um, uh, they said that typically mothers, when the child says no, like they don't want to eat something or they don't want to behave in a certain way that the mother wants, then the mother very subtly or not so subtly withdraws her love and takes that no as a personal affront. And therefore, the child gets scared of actually expressing no because mom is going to withdraw her love. And think about it, for a child, mom is everything, right?
Right. Right.
It's their source of life. And then when mom gives a no, if I reject mom's no, again, there's a withdrawal of love from her. So we learn that saying no is a dirty word because it's going to be met with a rejection of us. And also, when somebody else says no to us, if we don't accept that, we will be rejected. So as a consequence, we have a problem with the word no generally. We think it's a dirty word.
I think there's also a lot of cultural norms around it, right? Like, don't say no to that offering of food when you go to somebody's house, or don't say no when an uncle comes up to you and says, "Can I give you a hug?" Don't say no when somebody asks you for a favor. I think we're just taught that we owe other people our time or our energy, and saying no to people is disrespectful. We get that message so frequently that you're right. We do hear that no is a bad word. You might hurt someone's feelings, and you might be ignoring some important cultural rules about respecting your elders or doing things for other people, whatever the case may be. And every culture has its own rules. But I do think, to your point, broadly, no is a dirty, dirty, bad word.
No is a bad word because people don't know how to take a no. We've been trained not to give a no just because they don't know how to take a no.
That is so true. That's exactly it.
Yeah, taking a no is not a rejection of you. It just means
right.
I'm not going to eat that food because it's too spicy for me and
That's
I don't really want to have Gandhi's revenge all day tomorrow. It's just,
Why do you have to malign Gandhi that way?
it's in England.
Montezuma's revenge.
In England where I'm from, like, the spicy curry, it's called Gandhi's revenge.
Gandhi's revenge.
You got it. Okay. Question time.
Woo!
Question time.
Okay, so here's our first question. What do we do with someone who won't take it well if you express your boundaries and may double down on their behavior? Wow. Tough person.
Yeah.
Not only do you tell them how you feel and they reject it, but it just makes them dig their heels in and act even more poorly.
Yeah, they're going to punish you.
That's right.
The truth is, the closer and more attached you are to a person or a situation, the harder it is to express your boundaries. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 34, Lord Krishna says that attachment and fear go together. But a person should never be swayed by attachments and fears, for these two are stumbling blocks on your path. So understand that when you're acting out of fear, it's because you're attached, right? You're attached, as this listener is, to that person not doubling down. That's the attachment. They shouldn't double down. So their relationship is based on fear, and their silence is based in fear. And so what's the solution? Instead of focusing on avoiding conflict, focus on doing your duty. In chapter 18, verse 48, Lord Krishna says, one should never give up one's duty, though it may be difficult and may have some defects. He says, all undertakings are tainted with defects as fire is by smoke. What he's saying is accept and expect that this is not going to be easy or smooth.
That's right.
It's going to have some negative consequences.
You're going to have to step up your negotiation. You might have to be stronger in the face of what is clearly going to be a conflict-ridden situation, and stay really true to yourself, which is going to be difficult. Particularly the closer the relationship we have with the person, the more we're invested in maintaining peace. You're invested in some kind of conflict resolution, and it makes it much more challenging. But I feel like in this situation, particularly if the person does not stand their ground, this person will triple down, quadruple down the next time.
I agree. And it may be difficult to create physical distance between you and that person, but you can create emotional distance between you and that person. What does that mean? Investing less time and less energy and giving that relationship less importance in your life, and taking that time and energy and focusing on other relationships where you are supported, where you do have a strong support system of people who understand and support your well being. That is very important. Let's not underestimate emotional distance. A lot of times we are attached to somebody and we stay in a relationship for many reasons. It could be financial, it could be the longevity of a relationship, it could be kids are involved, it could be anything. But creating emotional distance is doable between you and that person. As Lord Krishna says, being a tortoise, having a strong support system, a strong outer shell of people who support you, taking a self help class, hobbies, and interests outside this relationship.
Talking to friends, talking to other family. Hopefully, many of us have strong friend networks and family networks, and this is the time to rely on who you can to give you that support to have that emotional distance. I'm hoping that that emotional distance itself is temporary until you can forge those boundaries.
The emotional distance, it may or may not be temporary, but hopefully the pushback and the doubling down of the behavior will be temporary.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to choose consequences that are sustainable. We talked about this in our last podcast. It's very important to choose consequences when you're establishing a boundary that are sustainable and realistic for you to enforce. I'll give you an example. When you shout at me, I can no longer hear you, and I'm going to have to walk away from this conversation until you're calm. That's sustainable. That's not saying I'm going to leave the house and never come back. It's not saying I'll never talk to you again. When you're establishing boundaries, it's very important to inform the other person what your response is going to be when that person exhibits a behavior that crosses your boundary of not being shouted at. And then it's very important to be able to carry out the consequences that you have chosen with minimal pain to you. And that behavior on your part is sustainable. I'm going to walk away until you're calm. And then we resume this conversation at another time.
That's right.
Choosing appropriate and sustainable and manageable consequences that you can enforce for yourself with little pain, and creating emotional distance between you and this person. Again, according to chapter 3, verse 34, the more attached you are to this person or to this situation, the more you have a fear based response. Be less attached.
It's true.
Easier
It's
said than
hard,
done.
but it's true. Yeah.
Sometimes very hard to let go of your attachment to somebody.
We talk about personal evolution all the time in terms of the Geeta, and that's what you're doing, right? That's something that you could control, your own personal evolution. And hopefully that person does the same. That person values your relationship enough. That person also presumably has some attachment to you too, and will take advantage of this opportunity now that you have stated what you need for this relationship to thrive. As long as you clearly state it, then hopefully instead of doubling down, they'll realize that this relationship brings value to them also, and they'll make the appropriate concessions to preserve that relationship. That's the hope, right? But ultimately, the only thing you can do is control yourself. And this is always very difficult, but it's just a lesson that I know I have to keep reminding myself that my job is to make sure that I'm continually evolving. And as much as I would like this other person to do so as well, it's really up to them. And hopefully, our relationship, friendship, a colleague, whoever it is, values that relationship enough to respect your boundaries and change themselves.
And even if they don't, then at least you know where you stand in the relationship,
So true.
and at least you have the truth. You're not in denial, wondering why this person is behaving this way and where do I stand in the relationship. No, it's right there. And then you can proceed accordingly.
That's right.
And I just want to state, of course, if you are putting yourself in physical danger by expressing your boundaries, then that's another issue altogether, and you may need to get legal help. But that is outside the parameters of this podcast. That's a whole different issue. Chapter 2, verse 47, Lord Krishna says, "Do your best and leave the rest. The results are not up to you. That helps you to stay calm and focused. Someone else's reaction does not belong to you. You are doing your duty by stating how you wish to be treated, how you need to be treated, and then their reaction does not belong to you. That is up to them. You did not make them angry. They made themselves angry. You did not make them double down. They made themselves double down."
Yes.
When setting a boundary, as we stated before, it's very important to be clear, to be firm, and speak with a kind tone. A lot of times when people double down, they want to do it as a distraction technique, that they want to emotionally dysregulate you, to distract you. So then the issue becomes your emotional dysregulation and your overwhelm, not the issue at hand. Understand that is a calculated manipulation technique. Don't fall for it. Stand your ground. Be clear. Keep being firm. Keep using a kind and compassionate tone. And don't, whatever happens, don't lose your cool. Because once you do, it's game over. Because then it becomes about your reaction and not about your boundary.
That's right.
Oftentimes, in any relationship, initially the pushback may be challenging to deal with. Even in a loving relationship, because people aren't used to it. People are like, what? You have boundaries? Even with our kids, right? The pushback is challenging to deal with. But with time and strong and practical boundaries and practical consequences, usually the other person will respect that you mean what you say and will adjust accordingly. It often just takes time.
It will, because listen, it feels great when you can get away with whatever you want with somebody, right? I mean, it does. And then as soon as somebody sets a boundary, it doesn't feel great to not get what you want. I mean, it's just that simple, but they'll get over it. If they have any respect for you, they'll get over it. It might be a little bumpy in the beginning. Expect that bumpiness. But if you expect them to say, of course, I will respect your boundaries if you haven't set them for a long time, that might be a little unrealistic. Manage your expectations.
Right. Very important. Okay, next question, Shayla.
Yes, I really love this question. I think it's an important one. How do I deal with the chaos that expressing my boundaries creates? Sometimes it is just simply easier to acquiesce to the wishes of others. Amen.
Yeah, and
Agreed.
it's definitely related to the first question about
Right.
somebody who's doubling down on their behavior. Yeah, it's going to be chaotic and difficult in the beginning. Of course, of course.
Yes, you will feel like it's easier to walk away. This is why we were saying manage your expectations, expect the chaos so that you can still stand your ground because you know that that's coming. You've mentally prepared yourself and you've also built up the fortitude to deal with it.
As this listener said, sometimes it's easier to simply acquiesce to the wishes of others. True. However, the real question is this sustainable in the long run?
Will I feel resentful in the long run?
Will this affect my health in the long run?
Will this impact my relationship? Probably yes to all of the above.
So if it's a one-time thing and no big deal, sure. Like whatever, I'll do this.
Let it slide.
Let it slide, sure. But if this is a repeated pattern and continually imposing on what you need for your mental and physical health and imposing on you fulfilling your duties, then think again. Focus on doing your duty. We're here on earth, according to the Geeta, to do our duty, and in doing our duty, optimally elevate ourselves to the best and highest version of ourselves. And the question is is the ability to perform the tasks that you need to do in the optimal way, is that being affected? If the answer is yes, then you need to do something. In the Gita, Lord Krishna says that we all tend to run away from pain and run towards pleasure. Those are the two modes of existence we have.
Yes.
We run away from something painful and run towards something pleasurable. And Lord Krishna says that that is a surefire way to avoid doing your duty. It's important to remember that expressing your boundaries, keeping yourself mentally and physically healthy, is part of your duty. So, are you avoiding doing your duty by acquiescing to this person?
Right. Are you sacrificing something of yourself to not deal with this issue? And if the answer is yes, then just deal with that short term challenge and difficulty and pain of standing up for yourself. And then in the long run, I think you'll be better for it.
Exactly. This way, you're choosing short term war for long term peace versus short term peace for long term war. Going back to the Mahabharata, King Dhritarashtra, who was the father of the Kauravas, who were the baddies, he failed over and over again to guide his children, correct his children, because he didn't want to deal with the short term chaos of teaching his children the right way to be, which is often difficult. And what did it lead to? It led to war and eventually the annihilation of all 100 of his children.
It's true. I mean, in the Mahabharata, he's a blind king, literally and metaphorically, right? He showed a blind eye to all things that his kids were doing that were so bad and did it to appease them. And it just got worse and worse, which I think we can all recognize. There's certain things that we have probably allowed the people in our life to get away with, be it our children, colleagues asking you to do more than you want to do, a spouse asking you that, a family member, anything. And it snowballs. And then you feel like you get to a point where you can't set that boundary anymore, but you can. It would have been better if you had done it in the beginning, but it's okay. You can still do it now. But we've all been in that situation where things snowball. This next question is a tough one. So here goes. My husband is having a tough time creating legal consequences with his sibling who has stolen from him. He is refusing to see that his sibling does not have my husband's best interest at heart. This is positively Mahabharata like. What a terrible position to be in.
Yeah, I agree. As you said, Shayla, this is Mahabharat-esque because this is exactly Arjun's issue at the start of the Kurukshetra war and why the Bhagavad Gita came about. As much as he was dealing with his cousins who were criminals on so many levels, Arjun's attachments and emotions and the love he had for them when they were younger clouded his judgment and his ability to see the situation clearly and act accordingly. And that's exactly what happens to us. Our attachments, our emotions, our memories of what was in the past or what we want a situation so desperately to be, it clouds our judgment and our ability to see a situation clearly for what it is today and act accordingly today. This poor man has a tough time seeing that his sibling is unfortunately now a criminal. It's not easy to see a situation as it is today and let go of our attachment, but it is essential. Sometimes when we're attached to somebody, especially when we were close to them or we want to be close to them and we want to salvage the relationship, it's very difficult to act in an appropriate way, especially when it comes to legal consequences. But something that might help your husband and what will help us all is this thought. which is the golden rule of dharma. Okay? What action is for the welfare of the whole world? The word dharma means an action that will uplift the entirety of the good of mankind. That's dharma. And adharma, the opposite of that, means something that will lower, that will degrade the welfare of all of mankind. So think, what is for the welfare of you, for your brother, and for all of mankind? Is it best for yours and your brother's welfare and highest good to let yourself be the victim and let him be the villain? Or is it better for his good, your good, and everyone's highest good for you to create boundaries and stop the illegal actions? Ultimately, in the long term, what's better for you and for all of mankind? The philosopher Immanuel Kant's moral imperative says that when you take an action, think, if everyone on this planet was in the same situation as me and did as I do, would the moral good of the world be uplifted or would it be degraded? And the truth is, are you enabling your own and your brother's moral uplifting by letting him get away with this? Or are you degrading yourself and him and the world at large if everyone was to do the same action as you and let their siblings get away with illegal actions? What's better for the welfare of everybody? That is the golden rule of duty. And that usually clarifies things that, wait, maybe it's for his best interest that I do call him out and I do create legal consequences because I'm actually preventing him from doing this to somebody else. Because who knows where this slippery slope may end.
Right. And listen, we know that this is very difficult. We have siblings, and these are, obviously very close relationships that you want to maintain. And this is really tough. But I think, in addition to reflecting on what the consequences are broadly in this situation, it seems like this relationship is already frayed at best.
Absolutely. And it's important to see that clearly. Again, not put your head in the sand.
That's right. And hopefully it improves. But in this situation, he's not going to be able to pretend that his brother did not steal from him and that their relationship is terrific. At some point, you have to recognize that you're bending over backwards when your brother's not showing you that same respect, right? You have to think about your dharma, but you also have to think about the value that your brother or this other person is placing on this relationship. Not very much. And this is like an extreme example. This person is stealing from you. I mean, that's pretty disrespectful.
I agree with you, Shayla. In chapter 3, verse 20, Lord Krishna says, having an eye to the maintenance of the world order, you should take to action. It's very important to think, what's best for the world at large? Is it best for your brother to get away with his criminal actions or not?
Right.
Interestingly enough, there was a Swami from the Bhakti Center that gave a lecture at one of my friends' homes. And I didn't want to ask this question in public. And
You see, I'm excited. What is this question?
so I said to him, after the lecture was over, I didn't have the courage to ask this question in front of everybody. And also, I didn't even know his answer. But once I heard his answer, I was like, hot damn, I should have asked that in front of everybody.
Could have looked so smart in front of all these people.
So I waited in line to meet this Swami. And I said to him, I want to ask you something. And the lecture was about maintaining relationships and what it takes for relationships to be successful. I said to him, if it's a relationship with an elder person in the family, not even a sibling, an elder person in the family, I said to him, what if you're in a relationship with an elder in the family who is a very respected elder, but is actually abusive to you, how do you proceed with making that relationship work? He said to me, listen, all relationships are mutual. If you give respect to a person and they are not giving you respect back, they are abusing you back, then that is not a mutual relationship. He said to me, I want to ask you something. Do you like being abused? I said to him, what? I said, no. He goes, I had to ask. Some people like being abused. Some people like it. I was like, wow, this Swami is really
And I think I want to clarify, in this case, we're talking about like verbal abuse or
verbal
emotional
abuse.
abuse.
Verbal
We're not,
abuse.
I mean, all bad, but
Correct. Verbal abuse. He said, unless you like being abused. I go, no, 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 I don't. And he said, then it's very important to express your boundary. He used the word boundary. He said, express your boundary and create a line, a hard line, and express to that person what they do that is unacceptable to you. And I said, yeah, okay, and then what? And he said, well, then you continue. And once they cross that boundary, then you walk away from the relationship. I said, but what if it's an elder? He said, it's good for you and it's good for them. It's good for you to stand up against abuse and it's good for them. And I said, how is it good for them? You know what he said to me? Maybe they'll learn something and improve their karma. You're doing them a favor.
it's a great way to think about it, right? No matter how old you are, you should always be evolving and learning.
Right.
And we act as if people who are older than us are these like perfect beings who have no room for growth, but they do. And sometimes you have to be the catalyst for that growth.
Yep. And you're doing your duty. He said it's good for both of you. And I was like, wow, that is a phenomenal perspective. That's with an elder, he said it. Imagine with a sibling, and especially somebody who's
Right.
broken the law. I'm sure he would feel that. But honestly, that gave me a lot of courage and perspective that a Swami is telling me this. So, for this listener, thank you for your question. And I hope chapter 3, verse 20, as well as the concept of doing your duty and the Swami's response helps you and your husband to move forward with what you need to do in this relationship. Okay, so you know what, Shayla? We haven't even got to all the questions and we've been recording for a while. We still have so many questions more. So I think we're going to have to do another episode to answer some of these questions because I think they're all great.
First of all, thank you everyone who shared their stories.
Yes, the response was overwhelming.
We're so grateful, and it gave us clearly more than enough conversation that we are going to have this podcast spill over to yet another episode because we have a lot more really great questions that I think all of our listeners will relate to and can learn from. And everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of Geeta Girl podcast focused on how to establish boundaries. As usual, you can find us on all the social medias. Well, a few of them, Facebook and Instagram at Geeta Girl Podcast. And please go to our website at geetagirl.com, where you can also find all of our podcasts and some other resources. Please email us at sharmila@geetagirl.com with all of your questions. And if you have more stories, who knows, you might find yourself on another podcast. Thank you all for listening and looking forward to the next installment focusing some more on how do you set boundaries.
Please don't forget to rate and review Geeta Girl podcast. We really appreciate everyone's support and everyone listening. And we will see you soon for another episode. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansujanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vandev Jagadguram